It's 9 minutes past 2. There's Paul Simon. And diamonds on the soles of her shoes. It's, it's time to meet somebody who is doing something in our area, making a difference, inspirational. You know, the sort of people that we have on the After 2 slot every weekday here at BBC Tees. This guy is amazing. Aren't you, Glenn?
Well, I don't think I am. I just, whenever anybody says that, I just think I'm a normal guy who's trying to make the best of things, you know?
This is Glenn Johnstone. He's our guest today, born and raised in County Durham. However, before we get into your story, Glenn, I do want to make something quite plain to you. That I am not impressed with the picture of you on your blogspot. You know the one?
I do.
The one where the weather is like it is today?
Well, I like to have a bit of fun.
You, naked on a bike. Sorry, not naked. You've got a woolly hat on.
I have, yeah. I was that excited to get out, I thought, well, just shoot off there, and I forgot to put something on.
You did it in the buff.
I did.
You did it in the buff. But it's nice to get a bit of air around, isn't it? You know what I mean? Okay. That's on his blogspot. All the women are going, right, what's his blogspot? Let's have a look. You're, like we say, from County Durham. An inspiration. Would you see yourself as somebody who's inspirational to others, then?
I'd like to think I am, but like I say, I don't really know. I'm just a normal guy, and I had these sort of things happen to us throughout my life, and I've just tried to get on, try and change a negative into a positive sort of thing.
We're going to look at around June 1995. Are there other things we should know about before then?
Not really, no. Things were going quite smoothly until then.
All right, so 1995, something unexpected happens to you. And does change your life. You were 27 years of age. Yeah,
that's right, yeah. I witnessed a murder outside the house, actually. And about a month later, start limping, got diagnosed with a giant cell tumour, and bang, that was it.
You've been a little bit, I wouldn't say dismissive there. You've been a little... we're not going into the details of the murder, put it that way, but what happened with you? A giant cell tumour in your right leg. So one day you just ended up limping?
Yeah, I used to be a postman, and I was doing a delivery up at Quaking Houses, and there was a lovely old lady at the end of the street, and she'd seen us on this round all week. In a Geordie accent, she said, "Hey, son, you've been limping all week. You want to get yourself away to the doctors?" And I thought, you know what it is, I have been limping, I had no pain, so I got myself away to the doctors, and it was a case of going for an x-ray, and when the x-ray came back, I had to go back and see the doctor, you know.
So what did you think it was then?
I just thought I pulled a ligament or a strain or something like that.
And when you went back to the doctors?
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock, because I've had a fear of hospitals.
I think everybody's got a fear of hospitals.
I have, yeah. Funny enough, I'm working in one now, so... But yeah, it was just, it was, I don't know, it was like, I went numb. I couldn't believe it. I didn't think, this can't happen to me. You know, I was fit, healthy.
Did you know there was something wrong when you went back in to see the doctor?
Yeah, well, I suppose I did, yeah, because I was a little bit worried when the first time he mentioned, you have to go and see an orthopaedic surgeon. So yeah, that was worrying.
And what, can you remember what went through your mind when they turned around and said, sit down, Glenn, we've found a problem. You got, as you put it, a giant cell tumour in your right leg.
Well, I think the most worrying thing was when I asked the surgeon, so I said to him, what's the worst case scenario? And he sort of said, oh, you'll lose your leg. So that was pretty scary.
Did you take it in at that point?
I didn't actually. I got up out of the seat and I drove home. And then I got a phone call about 5 minutes later, because at the time the hospital was only about 5 minutes away, and he said, oh, we haven't finished with you, you'll have to come back. He hadn't finished talking to us. I just got up, walked out the room, and I was just stunned, sort of thing, you know.
Had you gone on autopilot then?
I think I had, yeah. I just didn't want to accept that it was happening. It's a funny feeling, it's a funny experience, because it's weird in that you just go numb.
What did friends and family think?
Obviously they were devastated. It was just a really, really difficult time, because nothing had really happened like this, you know, in the family. I'm an only child, so obviously my mum and dad were just gutted.
So when you went back in to see the doctor, After you've been told the worst case scenario is your leg will have to come off.
Yeah.
What did they then subsequently tell you? I mean, can you tell us? Do you want to tell us?
Yeah, I mean, I had to go in for a really small operation. It was just a biopsy where they actually take a test sample out of the front of your bone, you know, your tibia. So obviously I was on crutches for a few weeks, and then the results come back that the tumour itself was benign. So I didn't need any sort of cancer treatment or anything like that. It wasn't a cancer, it's just like a tumour that grows.
Yeah.
But it was really aggressive. And at the time, they couldn't find a consultant surgeon in the northeast to do the operation. So they were talking about sending us to Leeds or Glasgow. And I'd never been away from home, so I was really, really scared. We went about probably about 2 months before they actually found a surgeon in the northeast that was willing to do this operation. And I had to go back into hospital to have this, you know, rather big operation where they actually drilled into the bone and they hollowed me bone out. And then I was put in a brace for about 7 months to keep my legs straight.
I'm clenching my teeth at this point. I hate anything like this.
Yeah, well, I didn't care much for it.
So you had the operation. Let's come back in a minute and talk about what happened after that here at BBC Teeth with our guest today, who is Glenn Johnstone. It's a crowded house, distant sun at BBC Teeth. It's 2:20. So our guest today is Glenn Johnstone. Glenn, so you're a postman, 27. You're out on your own one day. There's a lady up the road who notices you've been limping all day. You go to the docs to get it checked out. They do x-rays on you. They then come back to you and say, actually, you have a giant cell tumour in your right leg. You've then got to have an operation where they hollowed out your bone in your leg?
Yeah, the top of the tibia head.
Right, okay. How long were you in hospital for?
I was probably in hospital. I was only in hospital about a week because I was whining so much to come out. I just wanted to be out. So they sent us home with a straight leg brace on, and I was told no weight bearing whatsoever or you'll crush the bone. So that was quite difficult in itself, you know, hopping around on sticks when you hadn't been used to them. And obviously I came home, I did as I was told, and 7 months later this tumour reappeared in my leg, out the side of my knee, and it was absolutely excruciating.
It came back?
Yeah, 7 months later.
Dear me.
So again, devastated again.
How big are we looking at when you say tumour? I mean, how big, what sort of size are we looking at here?
Well, initially when it was diagnosed the first time round, you're probably looking about the size of a thumbnail. But when it came back the next time, I had a lump on the side of my leg. It was probably about the size of an apple.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're back to hospital again?
Yep, back to hospital again. My consultant was away, so I had to see the registrar. And the registrar didn't really want to tell us what was going on because he knew my reaction. Obviously, he came round and he said, you know, at the end of the day, Glenn, you're going to have a prosthesis put inside your leg. And I was just, no way, no, I'm not having it done. And he said, well, you have to or you're going to lose your leg. So it was a choice between having my leg amputated in 1996 then, or trying this sort of research of putting what was known as a COTS prosthesis inside my leg.
And this is it's surgically inserted. Basically, it's replacing the infected bone that's been taken out, and this is the replacement for it.
It is, yeah. It's a massive piece of metal, and it actually goes into the bone in the top of your thigh, your femur. It replaces most of your tibia. They sort of amputate your leg at the ankle, and they put the metalwork into your ankle, and you've got this artificial knee, and then they stitch you all back up. But obviously ligaments and things are missing, so the leg doesn't work quite as it should, you know.
And how did you feel at this point? Because here you are, like we said, you're quite a young guy here, 27, fairly active, postman. You've got to be fit to be a postman, we all know that. And now your life has changed. Did you feel aggrieved at this situation, annoyed, mad, upset, deflated? How?
It's really hard to explain how I felt. I woke up and I'd been in surgery 12 hours. I woke up in intensive care. It didn't feel like my leg was attached. I was crying. I was on morphine. Funny enough, I had like an out-of-body experience where I was in that much pain. I actually thought I was looking down on myself, thinking, oh, look at that poor guy lying in the bed. And then you sort of realise, that's me. you know, and it was just weird, the sensations I had. And then I woke up and this leg just wouldn't work. It was stiff, it hurt. And I mean, when it hurt, I mean, it really, really was painful when I moved it. I had to go back in a straight leg brace again because they were worried in case the quadricep ligament, which was stitched onto a screw in the front of my leg, was going to come loose.
I hope no one's having their tea at this point.
Yeah.
But, the word you've got here, and the word I can think of when you talked about pain, is excruciating.
Yeah.
You never felt pain like it before in your life.
I hadn't known, but I was later on to find out that the pain was going to get even worse. So I can't even describe it. It goes beyond excruciating.
And this was 1996.
It was, yeah.
Let's fast forward, because you had this prosthesis put in until 2007. So you lived with it for about 10, 11 years.
I did, yeah.
In constant pain?
Yeah. Every day. I was just in limbo. It was like Groundhog Day. Every day was the same. It sounds funny, but the only lookouts I really had was when I was going for hospital visits. That was the only time I was really socialising. I got out now and again, but it was really, really difficult. Concentration that you weren't going to trip over anything, concentrating that anybody wasn't going to fall into you, because I couldn't bend my leg, and my worst fear was somebody would fall on us from behind, and if this metalwork wasn't going to bend, the only thing that was going to give was the bit of bone that was attached to. And obviously I was frightened if it got much worse than that, I could end up with a amputation at that point.
So really, you couldn't do very much then at all?
I was very limited. I was able to drive, but this will tell you how far I drove. I had a Mini Cooper S, which I loved, and I had this car 2.5 years, and I only did 3,500 miles in it. It was my pride and joy, and I ended up having to obviously get rid of the car.
But I mean, mentally, from being somebody who's been very active to becoming someone who is quite inactive. Yeah,
I don't know if disabled was the term. I just felt useless. I didn't feel like a man. It affected me confidence. Later on, around about 2006, when things got really bad, basically I just shut down.
You say when things got really bad, how bad?
Well, in 2006, I went in for another operation to have my kneecap removed to try and give us a better bend in the leg, and the operation went wrong, and what happened was I bled out in theatre. When the knee was bent at 90 degrees, it crushed me blood vessels, so I actually bled out in theatre, and when I woke up, I didn't really know what had happened, and the consultant came in and he explained what had happened, and he actually said to us, I'm not willing to do any further surgery other than amputation. And at that point it was I can't really explain it because it didn't really sink in at first, but I just thought I've got no options other than amputation. I didn't want to lose my leg because I've been fighting for all those years to keep it, but that was my options: lose my leg or live with it and have no life at all.
And live with the pain as well. Yeah,
I had to live with the pain. The pain was the worst thing. I can't describe the pain. Nurses were coming out with all sorts of medications to try and knock us out on a night. I was on all different forms of morphines, oral like morphine and MST tablets. They were trying to up the doses, and I just couldn't control the pain.
Do you know what sort of effect this was having on the family as well?
Yeah, it was having a huge effect.
Because your dad's here with us today. He's chauffeur driven you in today.
Yeah,
good old dads.
Yeah, it must have been really, really hard for my mum and dad seeing us go through that. Very difficult, and unfortunately, we lost my mum as well to cancer. So I was actually nursing my mum while I was ill. So the family's been through a real rough ride.
Was there ever a point where you decided that you didn't want to go on anymore?
There was, yeah. The funny thing is, there was a point where I decided I didn't want to go on any further. But when it got to 2006 and things got really bad, I couldn't even make that decision. Like I say, I just shut down. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I wasn't eating. I couldn't sleep. I was in my own sort of, just mentally trapped. And one of my underlying memories is it's as if you were on the edge of a cliff and you've got nowhere to go, and you knew for a fact if you fell down into that chasm, that was it. You were going to be lost mentally. I wouldn't have come back. And luckily for me, there was a fantastic community nurse, and she came out and she gave me a real good talking to. And part of it I didn't even hear, but there was one thing she said to us, and she said, you know why most people feel down and get depressed? It's because they either look too far into the past or too far into the future. Your leg's never going to be your own. You've got to live for today. And I don't know what it was. It was like one of those cartoon light bulb moments, and it was like ting, it came on, and I just thought, you know what it is, if I get my leg off, I might be able to do this and I might be able to do that. And that was the decision for me. And I think it was that week I rang my consultant up, and I actually made an appointment to go in and see him, and that's when we discussed amputation.
So thanks to that nurse sitting you down and giving you a right good talking to.
Yeah.
And having fought for so long to save your leg,
yep,
you're now ringing the consultant, the hospital up to say, I want it off. Yeah,
I can't thank the community nursing team up at Downside enough, because they were absolutely amazing.
Let's come back in just a minute here at BBC Tees. It's nearly 2:30 now. We'll continue the story on because, although it sounds quite bleak for Glenn, it does get a hell of a lot better. Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Fear the Reaper. This is BBC Tees. John Foster, weekday afternoons, 12 through until 4. Our after 2 guest today is Glenn Johnstone, 27, giant cell tumour in his right leg, 12 years of surgeries, infections, pain, to 2007 when you elected to have your leg off, amputation, something that you'd fought against for over a decade, and you just decided, right, I'm going to do it. Can you remember picking up the phone or going in to see the consultant and saying, let's do it?
I can remember going in to see the consultant, and I can remember my attitude had changed totally. It's as if I'd been switched on, and I thought, my life's going nowhere with this leg, which had become my enemy. I hated it. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't do what I wanted it to do. It was just dragging us down, basically, in life. So I just thought, right, I'm going to get rid of this and I'm going to start again. Yeah, it was scary. I didn't really have anybody to talk to who was an amputee. I had one friend who was an amputee. He'd lost his leg through a motorcycle accident, but he'd lost his below knee, which is a lot more, I wouldn't say easier, but it's a little bit more easier to get on with.
So your amputation is from where?
I've got an above knee amputation, so I haven't got a knee. I've actually got to rely on a hydraulic or a metal joint, so it makes it a lot more difficult because you've got to swing your leg through. So yeah, I knew it was going to be an above knee amputation.
Did you have any second thoughts?
Not at all. Not once I'd spoken to the nurse and I'd been switched on to the idea. I start looking on the internet at amputees and what they could do, and I thought, right, I'm gonna go for this and give it my best shot. So I put my car up for sale, and this was my prized possession. I loved this car. Put the car up for sale, got rid of the car, and I thought, right, that's it. I'm going to go out and buy a really, really good bike. So I actually went out and spent £5,000 on a bike.
Bet your dad was impressed with that, was he?
Yeah, I suppose he was saying, you know, what the hell you spend that much on a bike for? But to me, I thought, right, if I spend that much on a bike, I've got to use it. I've got to learn to ride this bike.
What about learning to walk?
Learn to walk, like not being big-headed, but I took it like a duck to water because I'd been used to having a straight leg all those years, you know. So when I went up for rehab at Shotley Bridge Hospital, again, the staff were fantastic up there, and they put what they call a pomade, which is like an inflatable balloon round your stump, which is the bit that's left. And then you've got like a metal cage that goes round the balloon, and you walk straight-legged in between rails.
So you'd been doing that for so many years already?
Yeah, I didn't have the bend in my knee at that point, obviously, because it wasn't a prosthetic. And I went for rehabilitation for about 6 to 8 weeks. By that time, the Freeman, over at the Freeman where the limb centre is, they'd made my prosthetic. I'd been for a fitting. So about 6 weeks to 8 weeks, I'd gotten my prosthetic leg, and I was learning to walk on a prosthetic limb.
But didn't it feel funny at all after you'd woken up after the operation? To look down and realise Actually, I had 2 of them. There's only one now.
Yeah, well, it's quite funny because I don't know if every amputee does this, but the thing is, when you've lost that much weight, because your leg weighs quite a bit, so the first thing I did is try to sit up in bed, and me stump nearly hit us in the face. I know it sounds funny, but you go to sit up and the stump
be laughing,
just...
but you're laughing, so I'm going to laugh as well.
Well, this thing just come up and boof, nearly hit us in the face, and you think, what the hell's going on here? And then you look down and it's all covered in bandages, and I just thought, right, this is the start. I didn't miss it at all because I hated what I'd become.
Tell us about Brian Bartlett.
Yeah, in a way, Brian Bartlett's been my saviour. I actually saw him on YouTube. What was happening?
Who is he?
He's actually a designer of a prosthetic limb in America. It's what they call a universal sports knee, and this knee tries to replicate tendons and muscles. So it enables you to ride bikes, snowboard, ski. You can use it in the water. It's called a dirty design, so you can get it dirty, because most prosthetics you can't get them dirty because the gets into the components and it can wreck them. But this new Bartlett tendon, saw the guy on YouTube and I just thought, I've got to get myself one of those. And this knee allows us to ride out of the saddle, and I don't think there's any other knee on the market for an above knee amputee that allows you to do that. So it allows us to come down and jump off things and go through thick mud and everything. It's brilliant.
So you got in touch with him?
I did. It's a bit of a long story. What happened was, originally I started a Facebook page up called Facebook Amputees, and I mentioned that I was cycling with my normal NHS prosthetic, and a South African prosthetist got in touch with us, all the way from South Africa obviously, and he asked if I would be willing to offer advice to a guy that was cycling over there that was due to go in to have his leg amputated, and this guy was a national champion. So I said, yeah, I don't mind, passing on a few tips about how I'm coming on and one thing and another. And the prosthetist, he said, are you having any problems? And I said, well, actually I am, yeah. My socket's catching when I'm riding and it's causing it to nip. So he said, right, I may be able to put you in touch with one of my friends in the UK. And this is when I met Jamie Gillespie, who works at Pace Rehabilitation.
Yeah.
And Pace have been brilliant. Absolutely fantastic, because they made my first riding socket, which is the bit that goes around your stump, and through that I was able to ride a lot better, and I was able to put Brian and Jamie in touch, and we got Brian over to attend a conference up at Hampden Park, and this was a sporting prosthetics for elite and everyday athletes with a disability. Brian came over with his knee, and that's the first time I met him. And you just think, I'd known him for years. We got on absolutely brilliantly. And I mean, this guy's like, I'd seen him on YouTube and he was my hero, and I don't know, it was like, it must be like somebody meeting the movie idol or something like that, and I was in awe of this guy, like, and he was just so down to earth, so friendly. And I mean, now we're like best of friends, constant, emails, keeping in touch, because obviously he lives in Seattle in America.
So he sponsors you then?
He does, yeah. Brian's just sent us a brand new leg over in November of last year. This is the second one I've had off him.
So you test out his latest creation in prosthetics?
I do, yeah. I've got the new leg, which is going to be going on to... I mean, the leg's the old leg, but it's got a new top end on it, on the knee, which enables a little bit more progression in the leg. You can feel it a lot more. So I'm actually testing that out before it goes into production this year. And he's working on lots more top secret designs.
So you're his guinea pig?
Yeah, I'm amongst one of 5. There's 5 of us in the world that are actually sponsored by Brian. 2 in the UK. There's another gentleman called Glyn Theobald who I'm really good friends with. So we test in the UK, and then Brian's got another 3 guys throughout the world who are testing, doing different things, snowboarding, motocross, all different sports.
Let's come back in a minute and finish up this chat, because there's a couple of other things I want to ask you, as well as a bit more on, how you're doing at the moment with the bike testing, and you've just become an ambassador for another bikes firm as well, and just, your website and what it's about. I'd like to ask you about that, if I may.
locked in a cage. I am a growing force you kept in place. I am a tree reaching for the sun. Please don't hold me down. Please don't hold me down. I am a rolling wave without the motion. A glass of water longing for the ocean. I am an asphalt flower breaking free, but you keep stopping me. Release me. Release me. I am the rain that's coming down on you, that you shielded yourself from with the roof. I am the fire burning desperately, but you're controlling me. Release me. Release me. Release me. Release me.
Oh, Laura, release me. That's the choice of our guest today. It's Glenn Johnstone. What an amazing story yours has been so far. And to be sponsored by this, I suppose, guru who makes limbs for people like yourself. And you've become an ambassador for a bike company as well. What would you put your success down to then? I mean, you're known now around the world. You've got your own website. There's lots of videos of you on YouTube. And to see you on a bike, you wouldn't think that you'd only had one leg and the other one was false. I mean, you know, it's that amazing, isn't it, the technology in your leg now?
Yeah, the technology's fantastic. What would I put my success down to? I don't know. I suppose it's you need a lot of positive thinking and determination and get yourself out there and just do it, sort of thing. But I would put my success down to all the support I've had from family, friends, and, you know, the likes of Brian and Pace and obviously Sandman Bikes. It's nice to think that there's companies out there and people out there that are willing to take the chance on you and, you know, offer you these opportunities. Because I mean, I was probably around about 40-year-old when I started riding, so I'm not like exactly a young guy, but it's nice to think that people will say, yeah, this person's putting the effort in, you know, they're really trying, and we're going to help support him, and I really appreciate that. I think that's good.
Do you miss your leg?
The only time I miss my leg is running. I would love to be able to run, and unfortunately, due to finances, and you can't really get a blade from the NHS, because that's what I would need. I need a running blade, and to try and get sponsorship on a running blade as well as doing the cycling, it's really, really difficult. And I'm at that age now. I mean, I'm 44 now, so to try and put into one of the prosthetic companies and try and get a running blade, they might want to go for somebody a little more younger. But yeah, I do miss my leg for running, but for everything else, I've adapted. I'm used to it. I get on, I do what I can do, and I adapt to other situations, and what I can't do doesn't matter.
How much does your leg cost?
You're probably looking at about £10,000 private.
And a £5,000 bike?
Yeah. I've probably had about 12 grand's worth of bikes.
Dear me. And what's the reaction from people? When they come up to you and you're talking and everything, I don't know, perhaps somebody, brushes past your leg and kicks it and you don't feel anything or something like that, I don't know. When they find out that you've got a prosthetic leg on, all the way up, above knee amputee.
Well, the funny thing is, I've come in today with jeans on because of the weather. Normally I wear shorts all year round, so everybody always sees my leg, it's always on display. And the reaction I get is generally good. People come up and they'll talk to us about it. It's usually, when I've got my hair short, it's, oh, well, you're in the war, well, you're a soldier. And I used to work for an agency, actually, that I did casualty simulation for quite a while. It was about a year. And I really enjoyed the job, so I got to talk to some of the troops that were going over to Afghan. I was training them up to deal with IEDs, trauma, what to do. So the reaction's pretty good, usually. I've never had anybody come up and say anything nasty. And when I'm out on my bike, you'll get people stop and mainly they talk about the size of the tyres on my bike rather than my leg. And then
Bionic man!
Yeah, they notice and they go, oh, you've only got one leg. But the technology, when they look at the leg, everybody says, that's fantastic. So it's the response is usually, I wouldn't even say usually. I would say it's always brilliant.
And has there been any unusual moments with the leg? I think the one everybody would think of is, when you go through security check or something like that. If you're going on holiday and you've got to go through the old scanner at the airport. Yeah,
well, I've never really travelled, so I mean that's one of the things I would really like to do. I'd like to travel. But I can't remember going to a nightclub when I had metalwork inside my leg and getting scanned, and there's sort of the bouncer saying, oh, what have you got in there, sort of thing, and going up the whole length of the leg thinking I had some sort of weapon in my leg. But once you show them the scar, they're quite alright about it.
So you've never had to drop your trousers to prove it yet?
No, not yet.
There's always time. There is always time for that. Your stories is really inspirational of how you turned such a negative into a positive.
Yeah.
And now getting on with your life.
Yeah.
And I think 2007, if I've got that right, 2007, September 2007, when you were elected to have that amputation. Yeah. I suppose somewhere in your mind you probably thought, why didn't I do it sooner?
I did, yeah, but everybody, it's a personal choice, and you're trying to fight to keep something that's been with you all your life. And you love your legs, you love your arms, you don't want to get rid of them. But there comes a time, I suppose, when they do become your enemy and they can hold you back, and the decision, you've got to get it right in your head. I used to ask my mum and dad, do you think I'm making the right decision? And although my mum and dad's always been there for us and they've been absolutely fantastic, real rocks, they couldn't make the decision, because what happens if that had been the wrong decision? I would have blamed them for the rest of my life. It's very personal, but what I can say is once you've made the decision, it's the right one. And sometimes people are lucky when they have elective surgery rather than a traumatic experience like in a crash, because you've got no choice then. When you've got elective surgery, you can get it right in your head and you're making the right decision. And I can't explain to any of your listeners what it's like, but it's just it's the right decision for you.
What's coming up in the future then?
For the future for me, obviously I'll be testing Brian's leg out a bit more, and I'm hoping to do a little bit more for charity, raise some money for either cancer research or the RVI, the acute stroke unit. I would like to raise some money for them, because I've just been doing voluntary work, and I've been really lucky in that I've applied for a job at the RVI and I've gotten a job there.
So for a man who doesn't like hospitals, you're now working in one.
Yeah, I absolutely love the job. I love the staff, the patients are really nice, and I'd like to do something for the RVI.
Well, listen, good luck with it. It's great to meet you, Glenn Johnstone. You've got your own blog online. If you just Google you and County Durham, United Kingdom, prosthetic, whatever, you'll find you. And check out the videos on YouTube of you as well. It's good to meet you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for coming in. Your final song that you wanted us to play this afternoon is this from the Stereophonics.